Did you fall in the Seine? Did you fall in the River Seine?
When humans are conceived, hundreds of thousands of genes are passed down from the parent's chromosomes to the conceived child, including eye color, height, face shape, and many more. Now, in the technical sense, this is what makes us unique, the infinite possibilities that life hands us at our conception, and yet, out of the many distinctions we have, our ethnicities and race often seem to be the ones that we as a society have been consistently forcing into binary definitions and uniformity, contorting our senses of self into freakish apparitions, breathing wrath and hate into existence. However, I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'll elaborate. People of mixed ethnic backgrounds have been present historically for centuries, with some of the earliest records dating back to around 450 AD, when a child was born of a Saxon mother and English father, and have been discriminated against for just as long, with many having concealed their racial identities to fit into a society that rejected their very existence, often perceiving them as ugly ducklings cast adrift in a sea of conformity. Mixed-race people of African and Caribbean origin became rapidly more present throughout the world around the 1700s during the peak of the slave trade, where there were cases of illicit affairs between slaves and slave owners, often stemming from rapes or sexual assaults. Their appearance during the specific period in history set them up for failure from the get-go due to the incredibly rampant racism and discrimination that people of colour faced around that time, along with the immense stigma regarding interracial relationships, boxing them into a societal grey area, making them easy targets for discrimination and hate. This obviously created an even deeper struggle for mixed-race people and their parents just for existing, that has sadly continued into the modern day and reinforced harmful stereotypes, leading to this becoming tightly interwoven with their history, infecting their perception for centuries, even up until the present day. Now, you'd hope that in 2024 these sorts of issues would be significantly less prevalent, as more and more people of mixed ethnicities are born and rising into positions of influence and power, changing and moulding the definition of race. But sadly, so has discrimination, with even other people of colour being contributors for this. For example, the idea of the one-drop method is based around forcing mixed-race people into identifying as a singular ethnicity, the almost dystopian conformist idea that one drop of black blood makes you black, for example. This, while still being a generally upheld law in a lot of US states, has fueled discrimination from other ethnic groups, centered on the idea of mixed-race people having to pick a side in terms of their identities, and resenting them for not quote-unquote siding with them. This resentment can lead into modern stigma against interracial relationships in a not hugely dissimilar fashion to how they were seen historically, creating a vicious, cyclical narrative of narrow-mindedness and bigotry throughout history surrounding people of mixed ethnicities, in a similar fashion to how people of ethnic minorities have been discriminated against in general. Despite this negativity, however, attitudes towards mixed-race people have definitely changed for the better over the years, with many technical systems leaving room for a wide variety of mixed identities and people being significantly more accepting as a whole. However, the hate people of mixed ethnicities face has taken on a new form in several cultures, with casual discrimination becoming a more prevalent weapon used against mixed-race people, especially those who are more white-passing. As some people believe they have unfair privilege, which can lead to ostracization and a lack of consideration of the middle ground that biracial people occupy in the spectrum of race, and vice versa for those passing as their other predominant race. This can impact those affected, obviously, in the way any discrimination would, but with the added layer of feeling disrespected and unseen that comes with being seen as something you're not and being resented for that. This can often lead to a sense of imposter syndrome or a sort of identity crisis, leading people to portray themselves as something they're not, impacting self-image and esteem. This can, however, be helped through expression of feelings, open discussions, and media representation. Now, representation in formats like film or TV, while growing a lot more frequent, can often be misconstrued. For instance, Mixed-race people haven't been very present in film historically due to the intense societal stigma they face, but gradually have been implemented more and more into the media we consume, often in place of white roles nowadays, which has led to a lot of mixed-race castings being done out of a sense of tokenism. For instance, a lot of people have been using the recent casting of Nick Parker in the live-action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon to launch complaints at the casting of mixed-race people in films in general, with arguments revolving around the inaccuracy from the source material, with some having racist undertones. In theory, the argument could be correct, as Astrid in the original films is Scandinavian, and I'm sure this lack of representation for Scandinavian people can be hurtful. However, using this very valid point and weaponizing it to complain about mixed-race people and their appearance within media can be just blatant racism. The real issue here, arguably, is that the film probably won't actually address her race or make it a plot point, which doesn't necessarily have to be the main focus of the story. This can often help for mixed-race people to be seen within media as they can relate to the characters' experiences, and can then also have those experiences shape how society sees mixed-race people as a whole. A good example of this done well is in the recent interview with the Vampire AMC series with Jacob Anderson, who is a mixed-race man and was cast as Louis, a previously white character portrayed by Brad Pitt in the 90s film, who was a plantation owner. Now, this side of his story was obviously changed for the show, as it wouldn't have worked, and they instead incorporated his race into his character, making his struggles with his identity sexually and internally line up with his struggles as a man of African descent in New Orleans in the late 1700s. This is a good example of race swapping and representation done correctly, leading to many considering this interpretation of the character to be superior to the original. Now, I'm aware that the majority of this has been from my perspective as a man of African, Caribbean, Canadian, and English descent, so I asked a selection of people for their opinions on their experiences of being mixed race. Could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Alana, I'm age 17 and I'm from London.
My name's Kyrah, I'm 17.
And what is your ethnic background?
I'm half Jamaican, quarter Irish and a quarter Scottish.
I'm quarter Jamaican, quarter Algerian, quarter St. Lucian and quarter Irish.
And what are your favourite forms of media?
My favourite forms of media have to be like music and films.
I would say my favourite forms of media is probably music.
Do you feel represented within this media?
I feel like there's a good amount of representation within my background, and I feel like it's definitely increasing every day, but the types of music are limited. Like there might not be as much as, say for instance, as much as like black people within like rock music or indie music, but I feel like that is changing recently though.
Yes, I do. I feel like, yeah.
And how does this make you feel within yourself?
Makes me feel happy because I feel like we've definitely progressed as a whole, as the world. I feel like we're definitely represented a bit more.
I feel like it could be better, but it's okay. I think it's changing every day, so it's going to be better and there's going to be more representation.
And have you faced discrimination because of your race before, and if so, what sort of level was that at?
Yes and no. I haven't physically been said out loud, been discriminated, but I feel like sometimes some people can yeah.
Well, mostly when I was younger, people would just feel comfortable to make racist comments around me because they didn't see me as fully black, and that was quite uncomfortable, but I never really said anything about it because I didn't know what I could say about it and if I had the right to even speak up about it.
And if you could say something to the future generation of mixed race people, what would it be?
To embrace yourself and don't feel excluded whether with a black crowd or white crowd. Because sometimes people feel like they're more inclined to go to one crowd because some people might think you're too black or you're too white. I feel like just be yourself and yeah.
I would say to never feel pressured to try and fit into a certain race or stereotypes that are given, because no matter what race you are, if you're mixed race or anything, there's nothing that subjects you because of your race, and you're free to do whatever you want and to be whoever you want.
Oh!
You get it on.
You see this? Louis not a good person. He's putting ice cream. Which is the front and which is the back?
In 2024, the intricacies of the concept of race seem to be constantly shifting, as interracial relationships have been mostly normalized and ethnicities consistently mixed. This sense of imposter syndrome and judgment will hopefully decrease, but like so many forms of discrimination, it is still relevant, and as mentioned, can and is developing into more casual formats and contexts. On a brighter note though, hopefully society will learn to move past this for the most part, and if it stays on the same course it has been on for the past few years, hopefully this judgment and invasiveness from people in regards to people of mixed ethnic origins will dissipate. But we should still maintain awareness about the issues they face and talk about it more often, whether that be within the context of media such as music or film or TV or games, or whether it just be within societal spaces, no matter the age, gender, or context. It's still a good thing to do, both for people who are mixed race and those who aren't, so that their stories can be put out there and then can be used to educate others. Thank you for watching. I know this is sort of a departure from the content I post usually, but hopefully you enjoyed. If not, there's plenty of other content that isn't similar to this on my channel, so feel free to check that out. Any sources I used will be put in the description, any people mentioned and the credits and that sort of thing. So yeah, thanks for sticking around until the end. I really appreciate it. Look after yourself. Have a good day. I'll be uploading again soon.